first time I heard the number 71, I was alone in a house that wasn't mine. I was house sitting for my sister while she and her family went to Disney World. A week of free rent in exchange for watering her orchids and bringing in the mail. It seemed like a good deal. The house was in a quiet suburb, the kind of place where the only sound at night was the distant hum of the interstate and the occasional bark of a dog that had nothing better to do. The room I slept in was my nephew's. He was 8, obsessed with astronauts and dinosaurs, and his walls were covered with glow-in-the-dark stars. I didn't mind. The stars were comforting. They made me feel like I was sleeping under a sky that cared. On the third night, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to a sound I couldn't identify. It wasn't loud. A whisper, maybe, or a breath. I lay still, listening. The house settled, the refrigerator kicked on, and then I heard it again. A voice. Not a voice, really. More like the shape of a voice, the shape of a word. 71. I sat up. The room was dark except for the faint green glow of the stars. My phone was on the nightstand. I picked it up. No notifications. No missed calls. I checked the time. 3:17. I shrugged it off as a half-dream, a hypnic jerk of the ear. I went back to sleep. The next morning I found the first note. It was tucked under my coffee mug. A small piece of paper, torn from a spiral notebook, folded in half. I opened it. Written in pencil in handwriting that was neat but unfamiliar, 71. I asked my sister over text if my nephew had a habit of leaving notes. She said no. I asked if anyone else had a key to the house. She said just the neighbors, and they were in Florida too. I assumed I'd written it myself in a fugue state. Sleepwalking or something. I crumpled the note and threw it away. The next night I woke up again. 3:17 a.m. The whisper was louder. 71. Not a question, not a command, a statement. Like someone was informing me of a fact I had somehow forgotten. I got up. I walked through the house, flipping on lights. Empty. The front door was locked. The windows were closed. The orchids were thriving. I went back to bed. The whisper came again. Closer. It sounded like it was coming from inside the wall behind the headboard. I pressed my ear to the drywall. Nothing. Just the faint hum of electricity in the wires. The next morning, there were 3 notes. One on the bathroom mirror, one inside the refrigerator, one tucked under my pillow. All of them said the same thing, 71. The handwriting was still neat, still unfamiliar, but now I noticed something else. The paper wasn't from my nephew's notebook. It was from a different kind of paper, thicker, older. It had a watermark I couldn't identify. I called my sister again. Did anyone die in this house? I asked. She laughed, not that I know of. Why? I told her about the notes. She said I was probably just stressed from work. She said to drink some herbal tea and stop watching horror movies before bed. I hadn't watched any horror movies. But I didn't argue. That night, I set up my phone to record audio while I slept. I put it on the nightstand, opened the voice memo app, and pressed record. Then I lay down and waited. I didn't sleep, I stayed awake, listening. At 3:17 a.m., the whisper came, 71. I grabbed my phone, stopped the recording, and played it back. The recording was silent for the first few minutes. Then, at the 3:17 mark, I heard it. Not a whisper, a voice, clear as day. A voice I didn't recognize. Low, flat, and it said 71. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came after. On the recording, I heard myself respond. My own voice, but different. Slower, deeper. I said, I know. I don't remember saying that. I was awake. I was listening. My mouth never opened. But the recording didn't lie. I played it again and again. Each time the same exchange. The voice, 71. Me, I know. I left the house that night. I drove to a hotel and slept in a room with no stars on the wall. I didn't hear any whispers. I didn't find any notes. I thought I was safe. The next morning I went back to water the orchids. The notes were gone. All of them. The crumpled one from the trash was gone too. The house was clean. I checked the recording on my phone. It was corrupted. The file wouldn't open. I checked my call log. My sister hadn't responded to my last text. I called her. No answer. I called her husband. No answer. I drove to her house one last time to grab my bag. The front door was unlocked. I walked inside. The air was cold, too cold for July. The orchids were wilted. Their petals had turned a color I'd never seen before. Gray. Not the gray of age, the gray of ash. I went to my nephew's room. The glow-in-the-dark stars were gone. In their place, written on the ceiling in what looked like charcoal, was a single number, 71. It covered the entire ceiling. The digits were thick and dark, and they seemed to pulse in the dim light. I turned to leave. The door was closed. I hadn't closed it. I tried the knob. Locked. I rattled it. Nothing. I kicked it. The wood didn't budge. I turned around. The room had changed. The walls were covered in notes, hundreds of them, thousands, all saying the same thing. 71, 71, 71. And in the center of the floor, a trap door. I hadn't noticed it before. It was flush with the carpet, invisible until the notes appeared. I knelt and pulled it open. Below was a staircase, narrow, steep. The stairs were made of wood so old it looked like bone. And at the bottom, a light, flickering, amber. The same color as the glow-in-the-dark stars before they died. I climbed down. The stairs creaked in a rhythm, 71 steps. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. By the time I reached 70, my legs were shaking. The 71st step was different. It wasn't wood, it was stone. And when I stepped onto it, the world turned sideways. I was in a basement, not my sister's basement. The ceiling was lost in darkness. The walls were lined with shelves, and on the shelves, jars. Hundreds of jars, thousands. Each jar contained a piece of paper, a note, all of them the same, 71. But as I walked closer, I saw that the notes weren't identical. They were written in different hands, different inks, different languages. Some were ancient, some looked fresh. In the center of the basement, a desk. On the desk, a journal, leather-bound. The cover had the number 71 stamped in gold. I opened it. The first page was dated 1871. The handwriting was ornate, spidery. It read, "I heard the number for the first time tonight. It came from the walls. It said 71, I answered. I didn't mean to, but my mouth opened without my permission. I said, I know. I don't know what I know, but the number seemed satisfied. I flipped through the journal, page after page, different handwritings, different centuries. Each entry described the same experience. The whisper, the notes, the trapdoor, the basement, the jars, and at the end of each entry, a signature, a name. I recognized some of them. My sister's name, my nephew's name, and then, at the very end, a blank page. Waiting, I heard a sound behind me. I turned. A figure was standing among the shelves. It was tall, thin. Its face was featureless, a smooth oval of gray skin. But its hands were covered in writing. The number 71 tattooed on every finger, every knuckle, every inch of skin. It spoke, not with a voice, with a pressure. The same pressure I'd felt in my sleep. 71, it said, the number of the answer. Every question you've ever asked has the same answer. 71. Why are you here? 71. What happens after you die? 71. Who am I? 71. I tried to speak. My mouth wouldn't move. The figure stepped closer. Its face pressed against mine. The gray skin was warm. It smelled of old paper and dust. You answered, it said. When the number asked, you said, I know. That was the agreement. That was the binding. Everyone in this basement said the same thing. And now you belong to the number. You will write the notes. You will fill the jars. You will wait for the next person to hear the whisper and answer. I woke up in my own apartment, my bed, my sheets. My alarm clock said 7:11 a.m. I sat up. My hands were covered in ink. The number 71. On every finger, every knuckle. I scrubbed. It didn't fade. I used bleach. Nothing. The ink was under my skin. It had always been under my skin. That was 3 years ago. I've been writing notes ever since. I don't know where they go. I just know that every night at 3:17 a.m., I wake up with a pen in my hand and a piece of paper on my nightstand. I write 71. I fold the paper. I put it under my pillow. By morning, it's gone. I've tried not writing. The pain is indescribable. My fingers cramp. My skin blisters. My teeth ache. The number forces me. The number is hungry. And it's not just me. I've seen others. In my dreams. In the basement that I visit every time I close my eyes. We're all there. Writing. Folding. Waiting. The figure told me that 71 is the number of the answer. But it lied. There is no answer. There's just the question. And the question is always the same. How many times must you say I know before you realize you don't? I've said it 71 times. Tonight will be the 72nd. Check your hands. Look at the space between your thumb and forefinger. Is there a small mark? A dot? A scar you don't remember getting? That's where the number starts. It grows, it spreads. And one night, you'll wake up at 3:17 a.m. and you'll hear a whisper. 71. Don't say it. Don't say I know. Don't even think it. Lie. Say you don't understand. Say you misheard. Say anything else. Because once you answer, you belong to the basement. You belong to the jars. You belong to the number. And I'll be there, waiting, with a pen in my hand and a blank piece of paper. 21. That's your first lesson. Your second is that you already said it. Just now, when you read the number, when you heard it in your head, you answered. You always answer. That's how it gets you. Welcome to the basement. Pick up a pen. The jars are almost empty, and the number is so hungry.